September 13th, 2025. A seemingly ordinary rainy morning in Trinidad and Tobago spiraled into sheer pandemonium by midday. Streets morphed into raging rivers, cars were engulfed by torrents, and families fled their homes through waist-deep floods. In mere hours, a tropical wave unleashed over 4 inches of rain, overwhelming drainage systems and plunging entire neighborhoods into chaos. In Tunapuna, Chaguanas, and Claxton Bay, lives were upended. Parents hoisted children onto their shoulders, businesses vanished beneath muddy deluges, and residents stood helpless as decades of cherished memories were swept away. The storm's danger lay not just in its rainfall but in its relentless speed. Water surged with scant warning, rising so rapidly that even seasoned locals were stunned, declaring they'd never witnessed such fury. This was no mere flood. It was a brutal test of survival, exposing how climate change and crumbling infrastructure leave communities at nature's mercy. The morning began with an eerie calm across Trinidad. Clouds thickened swiftly, rolling in from the east, cloaking daylight in a dim, gray haze. By 9 a.m., the Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Service issued a yellow-level weather alert, warning of thunderstorms, lightning, and potential street flooding. At first, residents shrugged it off. Tropical waves are routine in the Caribbean. But by late morning, the weather turned vicious. The tropical wave, part of a broader system sweeping the Lesser Antilles, tapped into an abnormally moist atmosphere. Fueled by scorching surface air, it unleashed explosive rainfall. Sheets of water pounded down, at times slashing visibility to mere feet. Meteorologists later calculated that some areas endured over 4 inches of rain in under 3 hours, enough to cripple even robust drainage systems. By noon, streets in multiple communities vanished beneath rising waters. What began as a routine advisory erupted into a full-blown crisis, triggering a cascade of flooding, traffic mayhem, and emergency calls that pushed Trinidad's resources to the brink. By early afternoon, flash floods ravaged Tunapuna and Chaguanas, Trinidad's bustling hubs. In minutes, familiar roads became unrecognizable. Sapatia Street, Green Street, and the Eastern Main Road in Tunapuna transformed into churning waterways, while Montrose Road and the Southern Main Road in Chaguanas resembled canals. Vehicles stalled in traffic as floodwaters climbed to their windows, forcing drivers to abandon their cars and wade through waist-deep torrents. Residents described the catastrophe unfolding with terrifying speed. One moment it was just heavy rain, the next my entire storefront was submerged, said Marcia Joseph, a Green Street shopkeeper. Families scrambled to lift children, pets, and valuables to higher ground as water invaded living rooms and kitchens. In Chaguanas, schools dismissed early, and buses struggled through flooded intersections, leaving parents stranded and frantic. Emergency services were inundated with calls. Rescue crews raced to neighborhoods where water rose too fast for escape. Volunteers from nearby communities joined the effort, guiding people through chest-high floods and evacuating the elderly. The Southern Main Road, a vital artery for commerce and commuting, became impassable for hours, isolating neighborhoods from supplies and medical aid. This was no ordinary downpour. It laid bare Trinidad's urban vulnerabilities, exposing woefully inadequate drainage and a lack of long-term flood defenses. For those caught in the chaos, it was a day etched in memory. As floodwaters swallowed neighborhoods, the disaster's true toll emerged. In Tunapuna, families watched in anguish as muddy water filled their homes, ruining furniture, appliances, and treasured possessions. Parents carried children through waist-deep floods, while others sought refuge in schools and churches hastily turned into shelters. "I've lived here 30 years, said resident George Baptiste, and this is the worst I've seen. We've lost so much, but we'll find the strength to rebuild." In Chaguanas, the devastation was equally brutal. Small businesses, already battered by inflation, were decimated. Grocery stores, hardware shops, and street vendors saw inventories swept away. "We were just recovering from last year's floods, and now we're back to square one," mourned Ravi Singh, a grocer whose livelihood lay in ruins. Agriculture, Trinidad's food supply backbone, took a brutal hit. Farmers lost entire fields of cassava, cucumbers, and tomatoes overnight. Livestock drowned in low-lying pastures, and irrigation systems were left mangled. For many, this was not just a setback but a financial catastrophe. The emotional toll was crushing. Families mourned lost photo albums, heirlooms, and schoolbooks, memories erased in hours. Children clung to parents, terrified by the storm and the uncertainty ahead. For Trinidad, this was a crisis that tore into the heart of daily life. The government sprang into action, activating flood mitigation programs and deploying emergency teams to the hardest-hit areas. Drain clearing efforts and embankment reinforcements from earlier in the year mitigated some damage, but the sheer volume of water overwhelmed even improved systems. Minister of Rural Development and Local Government Katia Amin addressed the crisis's scale in a press briefing. The soil is saturated, rivers are swollen, and our infrastructure is under immense strain. We're seeing damage to homes, collapsed roadways, and widespread agricultural losses. Despite rapid response, the flooding exposed deep flaws in urban planning. Years of unchecked development, clogged culverts, outdated stormwater systems, and eroded embankments amplified the disaster. In Claxton Bay, motorists abandoned cars as water rose knee-deep in minutes, while children waded through submerged sidewalks to reach safety. Emergency hotlines were activated, community centers became shelters, and police closed flooded roads. Yet residents criticized the response as reactive, pointing to recurring floods in the same vulnerable areas. For them, this was not just a natural disaster, but proof of systemic failures that prolonged suffering. Amid the chaos, communities showed extraordinary resilience. Volunteers from mosques, churches, and neighborhood groups mobilized swiftly, providing food, dry clothes, and shelter to displaced families. In Tunapuna, community halls turned into relief centers where residents shared meals and blankets with shivering children. In Chaguanas, business owners donated supplies, and youth groups cleared mud and debris from streets. Yet heartbreak permeated these acts of solidarity. Families returned to waterlogged homes, finding ruined furniture, destroyed photo albums, and mud-caked floors. Farmers surveyed drowned fields of cassava, tomatoes, and cucumbers. Months of labor gone. Livestock losses deepened fears of food shortages and price spikes. Residents described the ordeal as a physical and emotional gut punch. Children gripped their parents as rescue boats navigated submerged streets, while the elderly mourned decades of lost possessions. "We're battered, but not broken," said Tunapuna's George Baptiste. "This is the worst in 30 years, but we'll rebuild together." This catastrophic flooding in Trinidad is more than a local tragedy. It's a stark warning for small island nations facing intensifying climate extremes. Meteorologists caution that the Caribbean faces increasingly severe rainfall events, fueled by warmer oceans and shifting weather patterns. Infrastructure built decades ago buckles under these deluges, while rapid urban development without proper drainage exacerbates the crisis. Experts urge urgent investment in modern flood defenses, stronger building codes, and sustainable land management to protect communities. Calls for early warning systems, better emergency coordination, and public awareness grow louder. The cost of inaction will soar, not just in dollars but in lives, livelihoods, and cultural heritage swept away. For Trinidadians, the storm raises haunting questions. Will the island be ready for the next deluge? Can communities rebuild stronger without losing their spirit? As waters recede, the scars tell a story far larger